17th, December 17th. I'm going to post this in our next episode, December 17th. We're going to have Shihan Walt Lysak teaching grappling for the streets. So we're going to think about a scenario one-on-one. Is that kind of scenario that we are both unarmed? We're going to talk about how we can maybe a weapon could appear in the middle of the altercation, but the situation will be we cannot get ourselves out. So it's pretty much we already passed the two first A's. So the seminar is going to be December 17th. We're going to start, I think, at 10 a.m., if I'm not wrong. And yeah, and it will be for you guys that already have been doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You should really take this class, this seminar. And if you never trained, we're still gonna help you. Welcome back to the Core Combatives podcast. I'm Luigi Mondelli. I'm again here with my co-host, my teacher, Shihan Walt Lysak. Thank you very much for everybody that has been subscribing, sending your comments, your likes, hitting the like button. We really need you to share. We need you to engage with us so we can keep producing really good material. We are trying to keep developing the podcast as we go. We have so many ideas, so many great people to bring. We're going to have many guests in the future. And today we're going to we're going to go through one more element on the BJJ Daily Dozen. Shihan going to talk about nutrition. I'm going to give you guys my input too. We're going to talk about preparedness, and it's related more to trauma, training, kind of things like that. We're going to go over the RMA Warrior Principles, like really great stuff. It's part of the RMA, the Reality Martial Arts System. And quote of the week, because it's very interesting to see how things connect. The quote of the week with what we have been talking about, and of course the book of the week. My books will be different than Shihan's books. I think he's going to be more technical, more related to what we do, and mine will be related to this new segment. We're going to always open the podcast with the segment I'm calling right to the point. So it's a quick text. I wrote mine. Shihan wrote his. And it's just like something that we're going to read for you guys. Usually like maybe through our own reflections. We're going to put it out here and maybe develop in the future off of those texts. So Shihan, thank you very much. Would you like to start?
Thank you. Sure, if you want me to, Professor. So for right to the point this week, I wrote like a little segment here, and it's called "What If 1984 Equaled 2022 and Beyond." And what if some people didn't want to be micromanaged by a one world government? Just a thought. I know everyone wants to be micromanaged, but what if some people didn't want to be told what to think and how to think? What if people didn't want all their possessions digitized, their finances digitized? I know everyone wants this, but what if they didn't? What if people didn't 100% trust their leaders? I mean, I know they're totally trustworthy and of the utmost character, both bipartisan, but what if? And obviously, I'm just thinking creatively here. I know everyone loves to be controlled like a pawn in the hand of a master chess player on the chessboard, but what if? What if?
Awesome. So mine are going to be a little longer here, and mine is related to yours in some way. So I'm just going to read it. So it's a little long, but I don't know. You guys tell me what you think. Be brave. We have always heard that old saying, we are our worst enemy. And one of our biggest challenges is to be brave enough to question our beliefs from time to time. Are your memories real or are they false memories? And what are they? How often do you ask yourself, are these thoughts mine? Have I allowed myself to be influenced or have I formulated my educated conclusions? As Carl Jung once said, that which you most need will be found where you least want to look. So ask yourself, are you brave? Are you brave to confront your old and your current self, your old and your current thoughts? What I propose is simple and always related to my mission. Go through your thoughts, words, deeds, and habits and see if you're a sovereign individual. Why wouldn't you? Because you need to be capable, but capable of what? Capable of thinking for yourself. Have you ever denied a belief due to social pressure from relationships, government, or work? Have you changed stances to please others than yourself? Be brave. The snake which cannot cast its skin has to die. As well, the minds which are prevented from changing their opinions, they cease to be mind. That's from Nietzsche. We can only change the world and dream of a better life for all if we become strong enough to start by educating ourselves in the matters we least want to deal with. Because at the end of the day, only the brave and capable will survive or will be able to defy anything that could enslave them. Be brave. So kind of like
I love it.
We didn't plan it, but I heard yours. What if, right? And but just going, we're going to go to preparedness principles, not preparedness, daily dozen, but just very quick. What you just said, and what I just what you prepared, what I prepared, I think they have from different perspectives. They really they are connected because like you said, what if people don't want to be in this new world order, but to make that decision, okay, I don't want my money to be all controlled digitally. Oh my God, this is a different word for me. By the government, because at any time they could shut down your access to your money because whatever reason is, right? But to make those decisions, you need to be brave to study, what happens in China with the, social credit score, so forth, so on. But anyway, right to the point.
I love this, and I know we want to go on, and I know we have limited time tonight, but I mean, I think this is something that's a little bit talked about, before we move on, because if you think about it, in today's world, there's this tendency where people that there is a pressure that kind of says, they don't want one group of people to think a certain way, and we understand it's okay for someone to have this opinion, this belief, and that belief, but when they try to force you to believe something, whether you believe it or not, that's where things get to be wrong. And it does seem like there's a sort of a pressure out there that says, if you don't agree with this, you're such and such, you're this, you're that, you're the other thing, something. They always attach some negative label or a stigma to that, which is totally obviously a strategy. It's just a scare tactic, psyops kind of nonsense. And people aren't stupid. Like even when they'll try to deal with things like, say, from example, from a faith perspective, and say how Christians try to push their faith. Look, only phony Christians throughout the history of mankind have ever tried to force their faith on people, or any religious person. If they're doing that, then they're not practicing their true religion. I look at even like Christianity, like I have this thing up on my on here right now. This is right from the scripture, right? And what does it say? It says choose you this day who you choose you this day whom you will serve. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Right? It doesn't say we're going to force you to choose who you will serve. You choose who you want to serve this day. But as for me and my family, we'll serve the Lord. So how is that where people of faith are forcing their faith on somebody? So it's only people that don't know what they're talking about. And they just they hear something historically where someone abused a representation of the faith and forced it on people, which has happened. We know that's happened in the Crusades and things like that, of course. But that's not what it says. That's not what the text actually says it's supposed to be. So when we live in a fair community and society, I want to live in a country where liberals have a right to liberal thought and conservatives have a right to conservative thought and independents have a right to independent thought, and we can debate and we can communicate and talk, but never be forced into a corner where I don't even want them not to have their right to think that way or believe that way. Even if I disagree with certain things, or this group or that group, whatever, I have no problem. I can still be their friend and disagree with them. But when you start trying to force someone to say something, agree with something, believe something, and it's basically saying my way is always right 100% of the time, I am the new God who's never wrong, that's where you run into problems. And I think that's kind of what's sort of happening in the world today. And we got to be, like you said, be brave to kind of confront and challenge these things before it gets to be just way too overwhelming.
Yeah, I think the biggest message for me that I adopted in my life was to check in depth every time I was coming up with a conclusion for any subject, say politically, speaking, or economically, anything related to society in general, right? Philosophy, ideologies, and etc. To try to understand where those ideas come from, because many people have great ideas, and they have the Jordan Peterson always talk about that. Many people have their hearts in the right place, their minds in the right place. Like they wish well, they want the best, but what they propose actually could have major consequences down the road. And why would have
Right.
those consequences? Because it's all about where this comes from. And then we need to do, and something that I would like to record in the future, we talk about pattern recognition, because we do that in everything, right? As MMA coaches, as teachers and jiu-jitsu coaches, and any competitive martial arts style, what we do is, when we have students competing, if we can get some information from our opponents, we try to have this catalog or database of what your opponent would do, so we can see what are the patterns. When we recognize the patterns, we can definitely have a better strategy. So we're going to talk all about that. I think I think the idea behind the right to the point will be to provoke some critical thinking, and that's the beauty about it. So,
and I'll leave it this, because I know we got to move on. But I mean, to me, it's just like, I can not only like somebody, but even love somebody. Even the Bible says, "Love your enemies, do good to those who persecute you, and say all manner of evil against you falsely." So, to me, if you're not of my same faith, of course I'm going to emphasize what I believe personally, because I really believe it, right? I'm being sincere. If you tell someone that this shirt is bright red, and I know it's not bright red, it's more of a blue color. My microphone just fell, but if I know it's more of a blue color, I'm not, and someone beats me with a bat till I say it's red. Well, I might say it's red, but I still believe it's blue in my mind, right? So I'm only admitting it because you're forcing me to do that. We don't want that to be the strategy of debate or influence in our country or in our world, right? And that's what it's becoming. But to me, if someone's a Hindu or a Muslim or Jewish or whatever, and that's what they believe, I think that's fine, because if I can't convince them otherwise, they should believe what they believe, and I should respect they have a right to believe that. I might believe something different. I can still be their friend and have a different belief as far as my faith, but still be there, be kind to them, be respectful to them, not bully them, not treat them disrespectfully, or try to force my opinion on them either, because I wouldn't think that would be right to do as well. I think that's the kind of society we need to live in, is where people can voice their opinion, voice their beliefs, and if I convince you through what I believe that, look, I may disagree with you, but I love you. I love you in the sense that I want the best for you, but I don't have to agree with you. I think that's really my focus, at least how I approach things. And there's people out there that may have a totally different opinion of me, but I really love them, care about them, wish the well, but I may totally disagree with them philosophically as far as how I approach things, my strategy to doing things, but I can still like them, not have to be their enemy.
Yeah, I already have my thought for the next episode. That'll be great. Right. Yeah, I love it. So right to the point will be this a way for us to provoke some thoughts, to kind of, you don't have to agree with us. That's the beauty of, that's why I moved to this country. That's what people have to understand, because of the freedoms, so and I see that.
Yeah, I want the people listening to us to think that, right? Don't you want them to have the right to not agree with us?
I mean, look,
I do. I don't want them to have the right, but just don't force your opinion on me. That's the difference. It's like, can we still get along? I know I keep going, but I'll stop at this. Stephen Covey, in his book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, right? He talks about the win-win, like that you can either have a situation where we try to work together and I create a win-win, or a win-lose, or a lose-win, right? So I lose, you win. That's not good. You lose, I win. That's not good. Win-win, I win, you win. That's good. But if we can't come to a win-win, he says there's a third alternative, which is to agree to disagree agreeably. Yeah. See, people don't know how to do that anymore. Agree to disagree. You know what? I respect you. Seem really fervent about that. You really believe that, and this is what I believe. So let's just agree to disagree agreeably. No, we gotta force our way on you. That's wrong. That's where the problem lies, is that people can't agree to disagree agreeably. You're out there listening to us. You don't agree with us. Well, maybe we have to just agree to disagree agreeably. We can get along, but just disagree.
I just want to leave this very, very clear here, because maybe that's something I need to work on myself, but I just would never agree with a communist. It's just like, I can't.
Well, no, and I don't mean I don't mean agree with the opinion. that the agreement is actually agreeing to disagree.
No.
I agree to
absolutely.
disagree.
No, I get it.
You know, we can be peaceful but disagree. But do we have to? I'm not going to. But you wouldn't force your opinion on a communist, and I wouldn't force my opinion. Let them force their opinion on me. But there's other ways we could
I'm radical to the point that I don't have any ever intention to have any conversation with a communist. It's just like this is very quick. It's just because of how much I study about Marxism and communism, and all the books that we read, the Communist Manifesto, the Black Book of Communism, the Gulag Archipelago from Solzhenitsyn. So I read all of those. I study in depth, and I lived in a country that almost became communist, and actually is becoming communist next year. So so that's why the only thing is like
my perspective. To me, it's the evangelist in me that always wants to reach someone, but at the same time, you also realize when you're not getting anywhere, and I understand that too. And my grandparents came over here because they were forced out through the war and came to the country, and they went through horrible things they had to deal with. So I'm familiar with, but at the same time, it's just not like I have to like them or like what they like how they are as a person necessarily, or believe what they believe, but just the fact that I would like to influence them. But if I can't influence them, then I that's where you can have your separate ways. You're not. I don't have to be their buddy or fellowship with them or do this or that. And I get that part too. You know,
I'm very radical when it comes to communism. Maybe if somebody comes and asks me, like a communist comes to ask me, like, really for real, like, hey, I would like to, I would like you to educate me about communism, because I'm thinking is this thing and it's not, or I feel that's one thing. But when you look at my only problem is, we do have those people with good intentions, but it still will be tools in the hands of very bad people, because no leader, no communist leader is a good person, and has never ever.
And all the strategies that go behind how they do things and how they approach things. If you look at very tricky, very slick.
Mao,
and I get. You also have to be very educated and kind of know what they're doing, what the strategies, how they're playing that chess game. If you're gonna even try to
just go back in history, that's I keep saying, and look if there has been ever a good communist leader, and we can mention Mao, we can mention Stalin, Lenin, and then Luigi, but those are too radical. Start like tricking down, like look at Xi Jinping right now, and with that fake smile, and but try. What Americans are failing a lot is to understand what's going on in China and how Chinese, because many times I had the opportunity to talk to Chinese people that managed to come to this country, and not people that lived in the nice areas, people that lived like really poorly, and the reality is not what the American says, and
I think we're on the same page. Actually, I think we're sort of saying the same thing in a different way. Like, to me, when I'm talking more about converting versus agreeing, and like I look at Paul the Apostle, like in the old, like, look, here he is putting men, women, and children, Christians to death in the New Testament, and the next thing you know, he's converted, and then he's willing to die for the faith and writes more books of the New Testament than any other author. Who would have thought that would happen? He would have been as radical as any communist leader ever, right? I mean, he was like like under Gamaliel and yet look at that conversion when he had the Damascus. So to me, it's like I believe God can reach anyone, but if I know it's not happening, I also know when
it's just because that
the shake the dust from my feet, like the Bible says, and
because that would be the good fight.
But I know it's a Bible show, so I don't want to get too. But I'm just saying that's showing out of me how I am. That's how I am. So, but I also recognize that there's a saying, don't cast your pearls before swine too. You can tell when you're wasting your time and you need to step away too. So that's true. So I'm in agreement with you. I would always try to like see if I can help somebody.
Look, I do believe, and actually I know I have heard many, at least like not many, but at least like 2 or 3 testimonies of former communist atheists that converted to Christianity. And they have an amazing story. But again, go back to my, right to the point, be brave. It's just like, if you're a communist and you're listening to this, or even if you're socialist, and if you're listening to this, trust me, be brave. And I'll give just so we can move on. I'm just going to give you like to everybody, like read these at least like 3 books. One is the Communist Manifesto. You're gonna even like, oh, I like these ideas. Okay, cool. Then actually, more research about how Karl Marx lived his life, and the guy was the biggest phony in the world. He was like pretty much. We're gonna talk more about that in the future episodes. Then you look, you read the Black Book of Communism. I'm gonna put all these links on the description, and then you have it's so hard reading. There's some compilations that kind of summarize, but you have to read the Gulag Archipelago from Solzhenitsyn. He was somebody that helped in the beginning to create the gulags, and he ended up being sent to there. And the craziest thing I can highlight from the readings, from my readings, was that when he mentions that some political prisoners will be sent to the gulags in Siberia in the worst conditions ever, and they would say like, yes, I deserve that. So that's how bad humanity can get. You being punished by a evil genocidal regime, and you still go to prison like in the worst of the worst places on earth, and you're still gonna just to not agree with whoever was anti-communist. But anyway, this has to be.
Yeah, we can go on and on. I can tell. I mean the funny and I know we got to shift gears, but the funny thing is how you can see, and people nowadays can see things happen around them, and all that stuff has happened in the past, and still can't see the potential.
I messed up this episode.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But anyway, no, you did. I think it's going to be. I think people. There's going to be people who appreciate it. People that want to kill us. But,
I messed up because end up like we went off topic, which is great. But listen, people don't understand. If I'm crazy against Marxism and communism, it's because I read so much. It's not because I'm a capitalist. It's not because
I have a friend, and maybe we can have him on our show sometime. And he does a lot of evangelism stuff. He's got cerebral palsy. Wonderful man, my friend Johannes, and he's from Denmark. He lived in Denmark, and I seen him go off on so many people that tell him how good socialism is. And he's like, he'll be like, he's so smart, and he just destroys them. He's like, what? He goes, and he's like, I live there. Don't you tell me? Have you ever lived in it? And they go, no, we haven't. They never. All the people that love it never lived in one of those countries either. But he will just wreck you. It's like, don't challenge him to telling him how good it is and how effective it is, because he's a minister and everything, and he's loving it every other way. But if you get on that subject, I mean, he knows every single nuance about it, and it's just like, okay, like, whoa, I didn't know he had it in him.
Whenever we go over, whenever we have an episode about communism and about ideologies and all that, I'll bring Sylvia too, because she's even like, sometimes I have to put brakes and say like, Sylvia, please come down, But listen, you go to our Core BJJ store and you can buy your Choke a Commie for Mommy T-shirt. It's like my bestseller T-shirt, Choke a Commie for Mommy at Core BJJ store. That's like, it's pretty much a grappler choking Lenin, and I love that shirt. That shirt I wear with pride, because it's like it summarizes everything I think about what I'd like to do with a Lenin if I ever had how to go back in time. I put him in a rear naked choke, just like my T-shirt. All right, so let's go to the BJJ Daily Dozen. Let's talk about nutrition.
Well, how do we get to BJJ Daily Dozen from there? Okay, so let's.
Do you want to do it today, or you want to skip?
No, let's do it, brother. So real quick, we've been doing the BJJ Daily Dozen. I just always do a quick review. We got the 3 Ps: pre, present, and post. What does that mean? Pre is what happens before the event. Present is what happens at or during the event. Post is what happens after the event. All these are very crucial to developing yourself as a competitor. What are the 12 elements that we work on? What is the dozen, so to speak, the daily dozen for BJJ dominance? Number 1 is mental and emotional preparation. Number 2 is the coach connection. We've already talked about these. You can look at the previous episodes to get the information on these. Number 3 is the professional practical matters. Number 4 is training partners and trainers. Number 5 is conditioning, which includes warm-ups, training, workout plans, and journaling. And today we're on nutrition and hydration, which we'll talk about in a minute. 7 is technical and strategic development, which will be coming up in future episodes. 8 is rest and rehab. 9 is drills and skills. 10 is rolling and sparring. 11 is researching every aspect of the sport itself. And 12 is replicating the competition dynamic as much as possible. So from that, We're going to move into, like, I'm just going to go through what I wrote in the basic outline, which we'll have for our core affiliates in the future. And then I'm just going to go through a couple of little pointers I have. So nutrition and hydration as far as and supplementation. Basically, you are what you eat. And if you want to be great, you need, I'm just reading from our outline, you need to eat great. Basically put good foods, help, lots of water, proven supplements into your body every day. If you're going to have a cheat day, either do it very seldom or do it after competition. Keep a water bottle with you all the time. Eat a balanced diet with clean foods. Include lots of healthy carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, or macronutrients. What you learn during training can be very valuable at competition. If you are getting sick, feeling weak or sluggish, or have an upset stomach when you're doing a hard roll at the academy, then the odds are you might need to adjust what you're eating, how much you're eating, or when you are eating, or all of the above. So that was the basic outline we had there. And then just a couple quick other things I have here as far as diet and nutrition or meal plans are concerned. First of all, run things by your doctor and don't be afraid to get a second opinion. Doesn't mean that the doctors are always right with their opinions on nutrition, but it's good to run it by them and be safe. Maybe you do have some certain contraindication, some health issue that could be a problem with eating or a certain way or taking certain supplements. So that stuff they will know about. But maybe go to a good nutritionist or a sports nutrition expert that would really know what they're talking about and give you some good, solid information, especially if you want to be serious about your competition. Remember, there's a million different perspectives out there. There's no best way for every person. Okay, just like we need to appropriate methods and strategies for our fighting tactics, sometimes we're going to also need to appropriate to meet our dietary needs. Some people don't want to weigh every little ounce of food and count all their macros. And although I did say in earlier sessions that being a good journaler is very beneficial and I highly recommend it. One simple thing you can do, and I always recommend to people, I use it myself, is just get the MyFitnessPal app. It's just so simple and it does so much for you. You can track your weight, you can track all kinds of stuff, food, every little thing, and it does.
What's the name again?
Stuff for you. It's simple. MyFitnessPal. Okay. And they have a free version and they have a paid version. They're both really good. So even the free is very, very valuable. And then also, so you need to find foods that work for you and agree with you. Not, again, someone can tell you eat this, and maybe certain things just don't work with your stomach, or maybe you could have some sort of allergic reaction and things like that. So you do have to experiment and appropriate to your personal needs. Remember, don't experiment with new foods or diet methods or supplements too close to an event. That can be bad. We talked about that earlier. So, or at the event itself. Be sure to make sure you're eating enough calories to maintain energy for training and for competition, as well as to rebuild your body and repair your body, heal your body from after training. Okay, so you're not getting enough protein. Your body's going to take that. It's going to attack your muscles and do certain things that you don't want it to do. So make sure that you're eating enough protein, eating enough carbs, eating enough of the healthy fats. Make sure you're trying to eat clean whole foods as much as possible. Again, we talked about lots of water and avoid, fried foods, obviously sugars, saturated trans fats, and maybe not really too much of these starchy carbs like, rice, pasta, bread, and you maybe get more like sweet potatoes, things like that. You also have to take into consideration, are you trying to gain weight? Are you trying to maintain weight? Are you going to have to lose weight? Are you trying to make weight the day of? Are you at the weight you want to be, but you want to increase your strength, you want to increase your energy or your mental clarity? So these are all things to take into consideration with your diet. And make sure you have very clear objectives about your nutritional plan. In other words, like I just talked about, what are you trying to increase strength, increase mental clarity, increase your energy? All these things. All these things you're trying to make weight, lose weight, gain weight. Be really clear that you factor that in. You talk to a nutritionist or talk to a sports nutrition expert or your doctor to prepare your meal plan. So there's obviously there's key reasons people prepare a nutritional plan or a workout, or why they even work out or exercise. The three reasons are health, performance, and appearance. So of those three, what's most important? Health is most important. Health is more important than even performing great at a competition, because if you die, you're not going to be able to perform anyway. So health first. There's lots of people that put lots of dangerous drugs in their body so they can perform better, but they wreck their health. So health is the most important. Performance is the second most important. Appearance is the least important, although they're all important. It's good to look good. It's good to perform good, but it's even most important to be healthy. So you want to be healthy, you want to perform right, and you want to look good. But think of them in that order. Okay, so that's really important, that you don't wreck your health in order to perform better, or you don't wreck your health in order to look better, but you focus on your health first, performance second, and appearance third. Those are some basic things I can tell you today when it comes to nutrition, diet. One last thing I do want to mention too, as far as the amount you need to have the fuel to match your energy expenditures, right? So, for example, if you're a really busy athlete, but you go to the academy and you're rolling multiple times a week, and then you're doing a kickboxing class, and then you do CrossFit, and then you're out there running and you're lifting weights, and you work in a construction job, you got a really busy job, you might need more calories than the guy that's training the same amount of days with you at the academy, rolling, just doing jiu-jitsu, if you're doing all those other things, and he does a desk job. So if he does a desk job and does jiu-jitsu 4 or 5 times a week, and you do a construction job and then do weights and CrossFit and kickboxing and Brazilian jiu-jitsu, that's, you're going to probably need more obviously need more calories than that person. So make sure you factor all these things in. So just this is a basic guideline, but we talk about, and Professor will talk about perfecting athletes, and another gentleman, I also have a good friend, Nick Major from Viking Alternative, and he's just a brilliant medical doctor, and I go to him for lots of information. I'm no expert by any stretch. I've done like a basic online kind of like new fitness and nutritional trainer course, but and got certified in that, but not to the level of some of the people out there. So I recommend also researching, reading books, talking to other experts, and realizing that you, like I said earlier, you are what you eat, and we need to make this a really important part of how we build ourselves as martial artists and as athletes.
So I love all of that, because as someone that competed quite a lot, I think, especially from blue to black belt, and I think I competed more in my black belt than any other belt. But honestly, I went through all of that. So I tried different things, kind of like food or how much I would eat the day before. So for the competitors out there, I would say Shihan mentioned this last episode when we were talking about training journaling. So writing down, what works, what doesn't work for you, and etc. in a technical way, whatever martial arts you're doing. But I would do the same thing as far as nutrition. For instance, I love chocolate. I'm not going to say that is my addiction, because I don't have any addiction, but say, because chocolate is not addiction. It's a silly thing. But I don't care about any other sweets but chocolate. But the problem is, sometimes at night, when I have a chocolate, I have a lot of chocolate. And then before, I wouldn't feel anything the next day. But I noticed that the nights that I eat a lot of chocolate, like I go to Whole Foods, they have this Belgian crepes, like a little box of, some cookies, but it's so good. So I always, instead of buy just one, I buy 3, and then I go, I'm gonna eat this one day, another day, another day, and then when I see, I ate everything. But the next day, I wake up more sluggish. My sleep is not the same, and then of course sugar. We can talk more about that in future episodes. How sugar can induce more inflammation in the body. But by journaling, you're going to find out more, especially as we get older. I think we get more sensitive. So, just a quick thing I did for myself, and then I can share with people. I went to a naturopath. His name is Darren Ingalls. And then I did a food sensitivity test, and it helped me like so much, just to know which food sensitive to, but not allergies, mostly like sensitivity. And that helped me with water retention, with energy, so many things, like things that I stopped eating for a period of time, or I got some drops. But anyway, whatever you choose, like Shihan said, if you can hire a professional or follow a professional, or there's so many great apps as far as nutrition, I would consider. And one thing that Michelle is my nutritionist. She's from Perfecting Athletes. I'm going to put the link there. They work with the best pro MMA fighters, boxers, athletes, and all of that. They are amazing. But what Michelle was explaining to me about, in nutrition in general, is the effects of, for instance, how we build glycogen from the night before, so we have energy for the next day to start when we go to a competition, right? So there's so many things, so many tips they gave me as far as like nutrition, that I still carry to this day. The balance, but and the biggest lesson was, don't think about diets. Like, some people get like into keto diet, or I mean, at least for me, and they get so into this high carb, low carb, whatever diet you do, and then you get so stressed with the diet when it should be a re-education, a nutritional re-education. And a lot, it will be based on what works for you. A lot will be what doesn't work for you. But in my life, it worked better when I I started re-educating myself as far as nutrition, and I didn't get too stressed with diets. Like, oh, I cannot eat this, I cannot eat that. I was just like, you know what? I just cut the things like the simple carbs, try to cut my chocolate, try to cut or eat the right things at the right time, not have a Brazilian barbecue before I go to bed, kind of things like that. But anyway, I'll list perfecting athletes. We're gonna list your friend. We're gonna get the name from Viking Alternative. And then I have another really good friend, Giuliano Galuppi. He's from Oklahoma. He runs American Top Team Oklahoma, but he is amazing when it comes to nutrition as well. Perfecting athletes, they are super ultra busy. They work with super high level athletes. So, but they have helped many friends that I have that are not athletes. So they can be a great alternative for you guys, as well as the other guys we're going to list in our description. Cool.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Cool. Awesome.
And I'm looking forward for the RMA Warrior Principles, because today we're going to talk about you said the 7 E's, and I think it's super important that people follow or at least try to understand the use of the 7 E's for self-defense.
So as we get into the 7 E's this evening, I talked about last night how, generally speaking, when you see people teach weapon defense or whatever that term they want to use, there's all different kind of terms people use, and they'll say, well, you can't. I'm just going to keep this really simple. We call it the 7 E's, okay? And I'm going to go through them first. They're escape, encumbrance, equal, equal, exceed, and then evade and engage and embrace your execution. Okay, which ones we're going to have here? So, escape, first and foremost. If it's safe, possible, and feasible, when someone confronts you with an edge weapon, impact weapon, firearm, whatever the case may be, escape. If it's safe, possible, and feasible. No, notice what I said. Safe, you can do it without getting hurt. Feasible, it makes sense to do it. And possible, you actually have the access, the ability to it. There's some exit points or things like that. So, for example, if I'm in a situation, someone has a knife, and your bunch of kids are in the restaurant, but you can escape. You can get up, run out the door, and escape. Well, it's safe for you to do it, but it's not feasible for you to do it. It might be safe and possible, but in that case, it's not feasible, because you're not going to leave your kids in there to let someone hack them up with, like that crazy guy at the McDonald's with the hatchet.
We should talk about that in the future.
Yeah, we could put that video up sometime. So there may be a situation that's safe to escape. It's possible to escape, but it's not feasible to escape because you have loved ones there that you have to protect and you have to do something. There's obviously a lot of things that the person could have done that will be involved in these 7 E's. So the first thing is escape. Number 2 is encumbrance or exceed. So if I put something between us, a car, a chair, a tree, whatever the case would be, when the guy has whether he has a firearm, whether he has an impact weapon, whether he has an edge weapon, whatever the case may be, that can work to my advantage. So I put encumbrance, like a barrier cover between me and them, okay? Or if I exceed their weapon. So if they pull out a little small tactical folder and I pull out a machete, as far as the length of the weapon and the threat it presents, I've sort of exceeded it. Now, if I also have more skill, I've also exceeded the threat. So if his skill is here on a scale 1 to 10, and my skill is here on a scale from 1 to 10, I've exceeded the threat by skill. And if his weapon is this long and my weapon is, whatever, 30, 25, 30 inches long, I've exceeded in the sense of having more reach too. So you can exceed the threat that way. So that we call it class 1 defense against an edge weapon or any type of weapon. Escaping, that's class 1. Class 2 is encumbrance and or exceed. So I could do a combination of both. I can exceed the threat. Like if you have a better firearm, a more powerful firearm, and you also have cover. So you have a cover that's your encumbrance, and you've exceeded the threat. Maybe they have a little small firearm. You have your AK, whatever the case might be. So and you're behind cover. Okay, so that's your class 2 option is encumbrance and exceeding. Now, if I can't escape, if it's not safe to escape, to get away from the situation, that's safe, possible, or feasible, or all those aren't lining up. If I don't have an encumbrance, anything I can put between me and them, if I don't have a weapon greater than theirs, maybe I can equal the threat. So if they pull a tactical folder, I can pull a tactical folder. Now, here's what you see, though, all the time. Every time I've ever seen anybody teach knife fighting, that involves someone who's unarmed versus someone that's armed, or someone that's armed and someone that's armed, they always fight with those weapons. And that's the first big mistake. In other words, you should do that. You should learn to do that. You should learn how to do that when you have to do that. But that should never be your first choice. So if me and if Professor was facing me and he pulled a tactical folder on me, and I was able to deploy mine because the distance, it was safe, possible, and feasible. Remember, those things want to line up. It was safe, possible, and feasible for me to deploy my tactical folder on him. Now, we got about the same size tactical folder, and I engage him. Now we start knife fighting and doing all this stuff and techniques and stuff like that. That's the dumbest thing I can do, because what I've done is I've actually just went down a level, because class 3 is equal, but class 3 is equal, but class 4 is evade and engage. So by evading the weapon or engaging his weapon with my weapon, I went down a level. So class 1 is escape, class 2 is encumbrance or exceed, class 3 is equal, class 4 is evade or engage. So when I engage, the chances of maybe I can kill him, but the chances of me getting cut and getting killed are pretty great too, because we're in such close proximity with two dangerous weapons. Versus if I use, now think about it, if I have this edge weapon between me and my opponent, unless he's a sociopath and just totally crazed out of his mind, if I have my tactical folder and he's got his tactical folder, my tactical folder becomes to him an encumbrance. It's a psychological encumbrance, which causes him to be more tentative if he's sane and intelligent and strategic as a warrior. So in other words, if I have no edge weapon and I'm facing Professor, he's going to be much more comfortable attacking me with an edge weapon than he is if I don't have a tactical folder, right? You always see this, because if you see, give two guys the big, thick magic markers, have them put on some white T-shirts, and have them start trying to fight each other with the knives. You're generally going to see that one guy may get cut up a lot more if one guy's a better skilled knife fighter, but they both got cut up. And it only takes one shot to certain spots to end everything, and you could bleed out and die. Even if you kill that guy first, you still might bleed out and die. Now, if I use my tactical folder, which against his tactical folder, as an equaling tool, where we've got both the equal threat. Okay, maybe our skills are about the same, maybe they're not. I don't know. Maybe my skills are greater. But we have the equal threat as far as the weapon is concerned, to create a psychological encumbrance between me and him, and go, back off, stay back, don't come near me. And as I'm doing it, I'm backing away. What am I doing? I'm using an equalizer as class 3 option, as an encumbrance class 2 option, to set up an escape, which is a class 1 option. So I went back up the ladder as far as options versus going down. So when I go from an equal, when he has a tactical folder and I have a tactical folder and we fight each other, I went from a 3 down to a 4. I'm more risking my safety. Now, that doesn't mean we shouldn't learn knife on knife. I'm not saying that. So really be clear. Yes, train that. Doesn't mean we shouldn't learn unarmed against knife. Yes, learn that. But the last thing you want to do when defending a knife is try to defend it unarmed. If anybody would tell you, if a guy's got an edge weapon and you can access a firearm, access a machete, or access a edge weapon of your own, that's the best thing to do versus try to do it unarmed. Has anybody ever defended themselves against an edge weapon unarmed? Yes, it's happened. But it's very dangerous, very high risk, and there's a good chance you're going to wind up cut badly or dead. Okay, so that's the reality of it. So if I go from a 3, an equal, to a 2, an encumbrance, or use it sort of as an encumbrance, again, it becomes like a psychological barrier or encumbrance between me and him, to set up an escape. I'm inching my way, back off, and I find my way to an exit, or go out the door, or get into a building, Walgreens, yell for someone to call the police, because and make the person more attentive. I just went up the scale. So the point is to go from if the person does have an edge weapon and I can bring my edge weapon into play, I create the encumbrance by equaling a psychological encumbrance to work my way up to an escape, which is a class 1 option. That's the best strategy. Now, a scenario where I can't escape, can't exceed, don't have a great weapon greater than theirs, can't find an encumbrance, there's nothing I can use as an encumbrance, or can't equal the weapon, they have a tactical folder, and I have nothing. Now, my only option would be to be able to either evade the weapon or engage the weapon, trying to shield it, block it, grab it, do some damage to my opponent, inflict some damage on him to hurt him, and hopefully try to disarm and keep the weapon away. And then when I can, but always at any time you have the opportunity, if I damage the person, he falls down and stumbles into some bushes or into a little ravine or something like that, if I go back up to the escape, that's what I do immediately. So I would always go back up to that when the opportunity presents itself, not stay and hang in that class 4 aspect of knife fighting, move to the class 1 or the higher class option as soon as I can. Now, remember, we had 7 options. First was escape. If you can't escape, that's class 1. If you can't escape, exceed or encumbrance, that's class 2. If you can't exceed or encumbrance, equal, that's class 3. If you can't equal, evade or engage, that's class 4. Those are the 6. And the 7th one is embrace your execution. One thing we never do is embrace our execution. People will tell you that it's almost impossible to defend against an edge weapon unarmed. Let me ask you this. Has anybody ever successfully defended themselves against an edge weapon unarmed? Well, I know the answer to that is true. Anyway, I know that's a fact. That's a factual thing. But does it always happen? No. Is it very dangerous? Yes. But it's better than embracing my execution. So if someone has a knife and I go, well, a lot of people die when someone has a knife, so go ahead, just kill me. I'll just embrace my execution. That makes no sense. So why would you embrace it? It's better to try something unarmed, evading, doing so on and so forth, than to just sit there and let the person kill you. That's why it is important to train unarmed against a blade. That's why it is important to train armed against a blade. I get it. But even more so, follow that process. Escape when you can escape. That's class 1. If you can't escape, exceed their threat, have a greater weapon and greater skill set, or encumbrance. Class 3, equal. If they pull that tactical folder, you pull the tactical folder. They have a firearm, you obviously could try to blend cover with it. Obviously, that's going to work to your advantage. And if there's any opportunity to go back up the ladder and use that equalizer to create an encumbrance and escape, do that. If you have no choice and there's no way of exceeding or equaling, then you evade or engage. Do so skillfully. Train with the right guys, the right type of people that are going to show you how to do that when you need to do that. But realize it looks cool, but it's the absolute last thing you want to do in reality. And even the best of trained fighters could get cut in such a way that they could die in an instant from a moderately talented guy or just a good athletic guy who's crazy and vicious. So if you can avoid it, that to me, that's the real essence of knife fighting, proper knife fighting. And we always follow first the 4 phases of the 4 A's: avert, avoid, ambush, active combat. So that's even before we get there. And then once we get there, these 7 E's kind of help as a good directive to your weapon defense training system.
Correct me if I'm wrong, especially for the listener or somebody watching us. This is extremely important to know, especially as a civilian, right? Because if you're a police officer, you might not have the option to escape, but because you have to engage, you have the duty to stop the threat and all of that. But of course, you're still not going to do that just without, analyzing everything,
But
cover,
even
barriers.
even a police officer, like if a police officer draws their weapon, if the person was coming at them, they draw their weapon right off the bat. That weapon, they don't have to fire the weapon, but that weapon becomes the firearm becomes an encumbrance, psychological encumbrance to a person, unless they're crazy on drugs or sociopath. Obviously, that can change the whole dynamic there. But at the same time, you're giving yourself the opportunity. They're doing that they don't draw the firearm because they want to kill someone. They draw the firearm to make the person tentative and more cooperative, so that they can apprehend the person and not kill the person. That's really the purpose behind it. And just the same as if I'm facing you and I have a machete and we're gonna spar and you're like, well, you got a machete and I have nothing, that you're going to be a little bit more nervous about sparring me. But then if all of a sudden I see you have a machete, I'm going to go, oh, wait a minute, you got a machete. I'm going to go, oh, wait, he's got a machete. Now I'm going to be more tentative, and you could do that. Just kind of back away, say back away, and use that to work your way out of the scenario. Not in every situation, but in a lot of times that's an option, and it's an option that a lot of people overlook. Not if you can't do it. That's why we have the ability to fight knife on knife, or firearm against firearm, or unarmed against armed, because we may have to do it. But the only time you do that is when you have to, not because you think it's the best option, or that's the way you should defend against a knife. The way you should defend against a knife is exactly what I said. Escape if you can escape, say possible and feasible, exceed. And I think very few people would disagree with me that say that if you have a lesser weapon, that I shouldn't access a greater weapon if I have the ability to do so.
Because I don't know. You should. I mean, if you're listening or watching this, consult a lawyer and make sure that you follow the rules and the laws of your state and your city and your country.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the point is, the premise is that you need to be in a deadly situation. You fear for your life, or there's a risk. Imminent risk, otherwise unavoidable, of death or grave bodily harm. So it could be a baseball bat, it could be a pipe, it could be anything else. And again, like just I think our listeners are smart enough to understand that as civilians,
Yeah.
People can fantasize, like have all these romantic ideas that you're going to be the hero, you're going to wear the cape the next day, you're going to be on the TV news because you saved the world. But the truth is, and we're not telling anybody to be cowards. It's not that at all. That's why we train a lot to be capable and to be brave.
Yeah.
Just going back to what I wrote. But point is, exactly what Shihan said, you need to put all these things in perspective, right? If you have a safe way to retreat, a safe way to escape, if you can also help your family if it's your family is with you, but if you can't, all right, so I need to create barriers. I need to and in a firearm situation, but again, check with your lawyers, check with the whoever that knows the law. Is you could even use your firearm in a low ready position as a de-escalation tool. There's some cases like that. And by the way, this is going to be great to revisit the 7Es. And I will separate. I'm going to choose some videos that I know right off my head that I'd like to show to the whoever's watching this on YouTube, maybe in future episodes. For instance, the most recently, a group of people, maybe at a mall, they saw like this, just like verbal confrontation. One guy pulls a knife, the other guy's like, trying to engage, and it was one quick shot to I would assume carotid or jugular, because it was right to the neck. The guy puts his hand on his neck, doesn't feel, I don't think the guy felt the blade going inside, put the hand on the neck, all of a sudden drop dead, right? Because it took like
and that's
like
the thing.
30 seconds to a minute.
You don't want to play patty cakes with someone that has a knife. It's just
and then he had a chance to leave because the guy wasn't like chasing him. They were not. It wasn't a duel.
Right.
This guy wasn't, and also wasn't the guy wasn't chasing him. The guy with the knife wasn't like running at him to the point, like he was just like, it was the they just say the macho thing, like, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Okay, you're dead now. So
exactly.
So that would be, in that case, that guy, he could go like escape right away.
Yeah.
Right. He could. I didn't see in that video how he could exceed and anything, but in the future episode, I'm writing down here to revisit the 7Es, especially for the civilians to understand, because the rules of engagement, of course, we're not talking about the military, we're not talking about battle war or anybody, any contractor working overseas, anything like that. This is like.
And just one thing to say real quick, it don't take a second, but that's why I so connect this to the 4As. And I know we talked about this in earlier episodes. I recommend people go back to their episode 1 or 2 where we did the 4As.
One, I think.
Again, avert, prevent conflict if you can at all costs. That's the legal approach. We say, regardless, is we want you. We're telling you, avert. Don't even get into the bad situation to begin with. Do everything you can. Don't hang around with the wrong people. Do the wrong things. Go to the wrong places, so it never happens to begin with. If you can't avert. You avoid. You de-escalate, diffuse, run away, escape, whatever the case will be. Ambush is third, and active combat is fourth, and then we connect that to these. So and like anything, I would say there's 2 things that I factor in. Number 1 is cumulative impact. Second is synergistic effect. So the cumulative impact, we blend all these things. The synergistic effect, if I'm blending a combination of exceeding the weapon, encumbrance, escaping, all these different things, that works together. That's much more effective than if I'm just trying to do one of them. And that, so if we can get multiple elements of these 7Es working together at the same time, that's going to be more effective. And that's why when I had the tactical folder against another tactical folder, I use that to create an encumbrance, psychological encumbrance, make the person more tentative about coming toward me as I'm setting up a class 1 option, which is escape. So I'm thinking multiple things, but it's just it's a system that kind of works. And then all of a sudden, if I realize I couldn't escape, maybe the door's locked, and then now I may have to go into engaging down to a class 4 because I got no other option, and now I have to fight knife on knife and escaping. Maybe I thought I was going to escape, now suddenly the door's locked or jammed. You see what I'm saying? So it just works its way back and forth, but at least it makes sense. And it's hard to think that it wouldn't fall into a legal thing without even being a legal expert. Of course, you can ask lawyers, but how a lawyer wouldn't say if a guy tried to escape versus engaging someone with a knife and killing him. I mean, I would be I find it hard to believe that a lawyer would tell you, no, you should have engaged the guy and killed him, versus saying first that you should try to escape if you can escape. So I'm saying don't engage them with a knife. Don't physically engage them or hurt them. If you have any other alternative to escape or prevent the confrontation, that just makes sense that would have to be the more legally appropriate thing without even, without even a law degree, but they can correct us if we're wrong,
Let me ask you this very quick.
Yeah.
So we know,
Right.
especially like if you think about the four A's, like avert, avoid, ambush, and active combat. So again, I'll put the link up here, so you guys can see. Let me just write down here so to remember to put the card there on YouTube, so you guys can go back to episode number 1. So we try to escape. Well, first of all, try not to go to that place. I went to that place. Now there's a problem, going on. I tried to talk myself out of the situation. Long story short, now I'm in fear for my life, my loved ones. I'm fearing for, whoever's around me. I know there is an imminent, otherwise unavoidable risk of death or grave bodily harm. I need to act in self-defense. And you're pretty clear in your mind that you have to act in self-defense. And you prepare because you have been training RMA, or you have been training in other systems. You have your system in yourself, like fixed blades or pocket blades, whatever you have, or firearms, or you grab something because you need to, maybe exceed the threat. Anyway, you had to act. So I'm gonna read this quote here because I'm like, it's kind of like, it's heavy though. And it wasn't my quote of the week, but I was prepared for some time in the future. I pulled this before. If an injury has to be done to a man, it should be so severe that his vengeance need not to be feared. From Niccolo Machiavelli, right? So Machiavelli, like, for who knows, his quotes in his books.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I'm just going to read it again. If we got to the point that we need to engage, and we never will ever embrace my execution, like Bill Raper says, or Carl DeFore says, we die well.
Yeah.
But die well means other things too, like do right by God and be in a good place in life. So, but anyway, what do you think? If an injury has to be done to a man, it should be so severe that his vengeance need not to be feared. What do you think? That's the point. Is that too much?
No. I mean, I think in some cases, I think there's a difference between warfare. Like if you're in warfare versus self-defense where there's options. So I mean, I mean, when you're defending yourself, you always have to remember you're not just defending yourself against your opponent. And I always remember there's three opponents you have. Number one is yourself, overcoming fear, anxiety, and so on and so forth. Number two is dealing with your physical opponent or opponents, and so number two is your opponent or opponents, and number three is the legal system. So we have to think that I can defend myself against myself, fear and anxiety, emotions, anything that anger, control, keeping my cool and all that in a real situation. Overcome the enemy of my opponent or opponents, and then overcome the legal system. So
it never ends when the fight ends.
In a situation where it's all out warfare, where someone's like, just killing people left and right, and they're coming after you and your family, and you got to fight. You do what you got to do, and we're not worried about, well, the lawyer says, whatever, that kind of thing. And then in that case, it's, I mean, even the lawyer would realize, hey, look, this is a bit of a different dynamic. I mean, we're
no, absolutely. I'm not saying it's different than stopping the threat. Like stopping the threat, it could be look, if I cannot. I don't want to fight, right? I don't want to get into a fist fight with anybody. I don't want to grapple with anybody for no reason. It's just like, if it's talking about unarmed situation, I'm in some place, I'm at a concert, some drunk dude starts like something, and I cannot get myself out. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, in that case, like, I could just control somebody, take somebody down, and of course, if it's appropriate, if they're not multiple attackers, or I can scan, or whatever technique. Working as a bouncer, I had to use before, a rear naked choke to protect myself against multiple guys. Putting my back against the wall, having the person as a shield or as an encumbrance. Right. And then as these guys were trying to fight, and then I had to put the guy in a rear naked choke, pretty much put him to sleep. And it was just stopping the threat until the guy could get up, and then no harm, no fault, because I'm protecting myself, disparity on numbers and all that. But anyway, that's to stop the threat. I read this in the case of, again, is like, are going to get shot, they're going to get stabbed, are going to get killed. There's no other way out. So
Right.
I know it's a little bit too
Well,
much, but it's
actually, it's
another
funny
thing
because I think coming up, we do the tactical checklist in the future,
yeah,
which is you know,
there's the next one.
recognize the threat or potential threat, eliminate initial threat, eliminate subsequent threat, check, clear, scan, exit, or check, control, maintain control for apprehension. So that even has eliminate the threat, eliminate subsequent threat. So you're making sure
Yeah,
there's
it's
no
also
longer a
that.
threat to you. So that's sort of saying what you're saying there, but at the same time, the threat, you know, what I'm saying with the 7Es is like what's potentially gonna incur more damage, not necessarily to my opponent, but to me. And there's more chance of me incurring damage if I engage you with a knife armed, or I engage you with an edge weapon, and you have one edge weapon, or if I engage you with a knife unarmed, than if I escape. So escaping, if I exceed, and use the exceeding machete to the knife to escape, that's less incurring less damage. If I equal and I escape, I'm incurring less damage. If I engage with a knife and even get a good little, lose my, you know, stabbed in the eye, but I live and you die and I'm blind the rest of my life, you kind of won, but you sort of didn't win. So that's what I'm saying is like, what's going to allow me to incur the least amount of damage? And that's where the 7Es kind of works that process out. And then the tactical checklist sort of deals what you were talking about later, which we'll be doing in the future, about making sure that when you eliminate that threat, you're certain that they're no longer a threat, that you, and you treat them as such. We'll get into that later. I don't want to go into a second stage.
Awesome. So that was a great preparedness. Did we do the preparedness? Yeah, we didn't do the preparedness.
That was
I skipped, right?
RMA principles, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Preparedness is short this week anyway, so.
Yeah, let's do the preparedness because I skipped. I don't know why.
Really, for preparedness this week, so lines up, and maybe it's perfect that you did it that way because, you know, you talked about the person getting stabbed in the neck and dying. What I'm going to recommend to everybody here, you know, I know Professor is, and I get first aid, CPR, AED certified. I recommend child, adult, infant. Get Stop the Bleed certified. We got that TECC course coming up. Professor can tell you about in a minute. And then I'm going to recommend these two books that my friend Dr. Nick Major, he's one of my black belts and also a great martial artist in his own right, but a brilliant medical doctor. But he recommended these books for just the regular person to have as a prepper. One is this here. It's the Survival Medicine Guide by Joseph Alton, MD, and his wife Amy Alton, who is a nurse. Amazing book. So this is the guide, and this is almost 300 pages here. And then there's a handbook, which is even much thicker. The Survival Medicine Handbook, which, I mean, there's tracheotomies in here, there's sucking wounds, all this stuff, you name it. It's just such and now look, this is 300 pages, and look at this compared to this.
This is like 700 pages.
Yeah, it's just a big, thick, book. So I recommend both these books. That's what I'm going to recommend for you, is that you do your first aid CPR certification, AED. You do your Stop the Bleed course, and if you're around and you can make it to this TECC course that we got coming up on December 11th, that you be there for that course. I mean, this stuff can save someone's life. There's plenty of times where a person's been stabbed, and the reason they lived is not because they were such a great fighter. They may have fended off the opponent, stopped the opponent, but at the same time, they were bleeding in such a way that if emergency medical services didn't show up on time, they would have died just because of bleeding out. But if someone's there to be able to control or manage the bleeding long enough for them to get there, they can live just because of that. So part of your defense system is knowing this stuff. Maybe you could save someone else's life, or maybe someone else can save your life. So simple, short, sweet, right to the point. But that's your prepper thing of the week, is get prepared in that sense. Some of you have a medical background, but if you don't, please, I recommend as soon as possible, within the next 6 to 12 months, don't let yourself go that long without doing this.
I absolutely agree. That's the reason why every year I decided to host a TECC, a Tactical Emergency Casualty Care. So that's the civilian, let's say simplified a little bit, version of the Tactical Combat Casualty Care. And we're going to have Chris from Condition Red coming to our gym December 11th at 9 a.m. All the money goes to his company. He does a great job educating people as far as like, especially trauma like that. And it's $150. If you guys are interested, just send me an email confirming that you would like to participate. I'll send you a link for payment. The school doesn't make absolutely anything, and people ask me like, why do I host these events? The only reason why I host these events is because I want my guys, my everybody in our, and when I say guys, I'm talking about guys and girls. and everybody in our community to be more capable, be safer. Something happens. It could be something like one time, that was long ago. If you're listening to this, you're not going to be able to see it, but I was cutting a pipe or doing something, and I cut my wrist right here, and I hit an artery. So it's pretty much squirting blood, right? It's kind of funny story. I went to the hospital. They end up like just not even stitching me, but I put a lot of pressure. So I kind of had an idea, right? So I put a lot of pressure, wrapped super tight with bandage, and went right away to the hospital. But the funny story is that they sent a psychologist because they thought that I tried to kill myself. I'm like, no, I love my life. It's just really like I was cutting a pipe. And the woman was like, are you sure? Are you sure? But anyway, it wasn't the case. But just knowing a little bit, don't panic. A lot of pressure, wrap it over, get a good bandage. Good, you will learn in any of those courses, like Stop the Bleed and I think basic CPR you will get to. You will learn like what is a good trauma kit, where you get good trauma kits from. I use Templar Medical to buy my stuff, but we know that there's a North American how to call rescue association, something like that. Dark Angel. There's so many other companies that put together like IFACs that I have one in my backpack. I always have my blowout kit when I go to the range. I do have 2 full trauma kits in my both cars, and I can take care of at least like 2 people. I do carry tourniquets on me. I do have tourniquets, extra tourniquets in the car. You go to a course like that, you learn how to apply tourniquets on other people, self apply tourniquets if you have the condition to. All of that, I think it's part of preparedness. So thanks so much for bringing that up. I'll put the link and information in our description here too. If you guys in Danbury, Connecticut, December 11th, we start at 9 a.m. It's pretty much about 6 to 8 hours course. Cool.
Great.
And okay, let's go with the quote of the week.
All right, cool.
I pulled one. So that one from Machiavelli, I will I'll leave for the whenever we have like use of deadly force event like episode. So you want to go first?
Yeah. Do you want to do? Are we doing the book, or are we gonna do the quote first? You want to do the quote first? That's fine.
Let's do the quote and then the book, because then we end with the book.
Okay. Yeah. My quote of the week is this. It says, "Owning a handgun doesn't make you armed any more than owning a guitar makes you a musician," by Jeff Cooper.
That's awesome. I love it. And that goes with what we said last time. People that, if you live in a state that you don't need a proper training to get a pistol permit or a concealed carry permit, or if you live in a state that is constitutional carry, you just can buy whatever you want, whatever. I would say still seek good training, at least like safe training.
Yeah.
There are a lot of amazing guys. I'm gonna start listing in the future. I have Dave DaCosta in Texas. He's an amazing dude. He's a fantastic firearms trainer. And of course, at a higher level, Bill Raper, Cal DeFore, Matt Pranker from X-Ray. There's so many. Scott Jedlinski, they call Modern Samurai Project. He's amazing shooter. Like he's like ridiculous. But there's so many great training. So I do agree with you. My quote today is from Frederick Matthias Alexander. People do not decide their futures. They decide their habits, and their habits decide their futures. So it's pretty much like preparedness.
Yeah.
So I'm talking about everything, right?
Spot on.
And, and just because we're gonna go to book of the week.
Yep.
And my book of the week has nothing to do with preparedness or anything tactical, but it goes back to my Be Brave, right to the point text. The book, I read this book, I loved. It might be difficult reading because it's a dialogue. So the name of the book is The Courage to be Disliked by Ishiro Kishimi and Fumitake Koga. I'm just going to read a brief, because people are going to like, what do you mean with that? I'm just going to read a very basic summary here. In The Courage to be Disliked, Ishiro Kishimi and Fumitake Koga argued that every problem you have in life has a single cause. You care too much about what other people think of you. In turn, this causes you to live what other people want rather than what you care about. Resent other people's success since they take away from your luster, and think you are incompetent when you don't get someone else's approval, even if the approval is impossible to get. The book made waves in Asia before becoming a bestseller in the West. Kishimi is a licensed counselor, an expert in Adlerian psychology. If you guys don't know what is Adlerian psychology, Alfred Adler, he's one of the main influential psychologists back the day. He had a different perspective than Freud or kind of like Jung, but it's really interesting his approach. So Koga, a professional business writer, proclaims himself the Plato to Kishimi's Socrates. Transcribing and transforming Kishimi's insights into a more accessible form of for the general public. In this guide, anyway, so yeah, so I read the book. It's really interesting. I do love Carl Jung when it comes to psychology. I'm not a huge Freud fan, but I really took a lot of things from this book as far as not judging people for how they live their lives. Of course, as a Christian, it's one of our 10 commandments, shall not judge. But also, it helped me understand a lot of, behaviors and what is inferiority complex, superiority. How does it?
Superiority. Yeah.
Superiority complex, and and everything in between. Why he doesn't believe in traumas, and he does believe that most of our issues are personal issues. So things like our relationship with the world and with other people, and how much we try to please others. So this goes back to the be brave. Be brave to challenge your own thoughts. Be brave to challenge your own convictions. Don't be afraid to change your opinions based on educated, your research. And if you make that's my message for this episode. So if you study something, let's say you're communist. You're communist because somebody told you that it's a fair system, because Karl Marx said that, about the bourgeoisie and the proletarian, and we all proletarians, and he thought that this things was awesome. So I really like communism. And so you start like going out and having relationships that people that think alike you, think alike. So, or people that think like you. So, your friend, your boyfriend, your husband, and then your other best friend and other people that you talk to, they all have the same ideas, and awesome, you're getting accepted by them. But don't be afraid, be brave to do your own research, because then you're going to see, and I'm telling you, once you do your own research, not trying to influence anybody, that communism is not a good thing, and we're never going to be a good thing, and we're never going to work well unless for the elite and for the state and for the tyrants. But once you come up with your own conclusion, not because I said that, you're going to have to be in peace, because the people around you will be shaming you. Some people going to judge you. Some people going to, say terrible things about you just because you don't think like them anymore. And that goes back to what you said in the beginning, as far as like, okay, maybe that person that changed their opinion can be the vehicle for change, or the inspiration for change within, his or hers peers. But yeah, don't be afraid of thinking for yourself. Don't think you have to fit in. Right. Be brave.
Yeah, and don't be afraid of rational, composed debate. I mean,
Oh, absolutely.
and I mean, if people can just debate peacefully and calmly, okay, well, I see where you're coming from, but the reason I don't agree with it, that's how you learn. Even from your enemy, even from your opponent, you can learn a lot in that kind of environment. Where people are. I mean, I have lots of friends that have totally different viewpoints on certain things, and we'll debate, but they're the ones that I can call my friends are the ones who can be calm and not get crazy and flip out about my perspective, keep at least seem like they have some level of intelligence and composure and coolness while they're doing it. And at the end, a lot of times you can move the needle one way. They may try to move the needle one way or the other. I'm not saying necessarily with communism, just saying with any type of thing where a person might disagree with you. Debate, intelligent, composed debate is the key. And when people can't do that, that's where things get really difficult, because you can't.
Just a very quick here. It's not going to be my second book, but but who has read and this is gonna be the next book of the week, maybe in the future. But that book, How to Influence People, or How to Win Friends and Influence People. When Dale says that we don't convince anybody, people convince themselves. So we can only be the inspiration. We can only be the maybe try to motivate people to whatever. But the convincement comes from inside. Right. So for yours, your book,
my book of the week lines up with my quote, which is a little short book, and probably one of the shortest books I own. You see, it's like not much thicker than like my pinky. Is Principles of Personal Defense by Jeff Cooper. Father of American handgunning, founder of Gunsight. He came up with a color code awareness. Cooper, code. And just I think way ahead of his time. I love his principles, and this is just such a great book. He covers alertness, decisiveness, aggressiveness, speed, coolness, ruthlessness, and surprise. And it's a simple book. One of the things I got out of this that really, as someone who teaches reality-based training and reality martial arts, when he said in the book something to the effect of how competitive shooters will train harder to win a little medal or a little trophy than most police officers and military personnel will train to come home safe to their families and alive to their families. It's amazing. He says these guys will.
Yes.
And I've had friends like that. One of my friends, John Carney, this guy would be like and he was a police officer too, but he did competitive shooting every single day. He'd be at home. He was watching his TV every time things changed, doing like, dry fire stuff and tactical reloads. And he was just always training, drilling, going to the range, doing this, going out. It was nonstop. I remember him going down with a group of guys that were training with really high speed guys, and they were just watching him. Like he looked like something like out of a movie. Like they were playing this film real fast because he was just so insanely. But it's all he did. He did it every single day. And the funny thing is, even being a police officer, I think a lot of the training that he did though was because he liked the competitive side too. So at least he was doing both sides. But a lot of people won't do that. They won't. I have so many friends that are police officers, and they'll tell me, I don't remember the last time. And I hope I qualify next time I go out, and I haven't touched the gun in this long. I think I was so thrilled that I qualified. We really shouldn't be like that, especially if that's your job. You're carrying that thing all the time. Your life depends on it on a daily basis, and just like fighting skills, if you're more trained with it, you're a bit less likely to use it in the wrong way too. So
absolutely, I agree 100% with that quote from Jeff Cooper. And this is a quick anecdote about myself changing my opinion. And I had a chance to, I have competed before, right? Shooting. I want to get back into competing. What happened one day was I was in a competition, and they have the stages. So in one of the stages, I had to, I was behind concealment, let's say cover, and then I had to run. And the way that they wanted me to engage the targets, I thought that tactically was wrong, because say I'm moving to my right, he wanted me to engage 2 targets, first left and then right, when tactically, as I'm moving out of concealment or just like peeking out, I will engage the first one that I see and then keep moving until I see the second one. So it will be the first one will be the right one, and the left one will be the second one. But I end up getting a penalty, which I was fine. I asked him like, why? And he goes, oh, because this stage, you should have engaged the first guy on the left and then the guy on the right. And I told him, wow, technically that sounds wrong, because the first guy I would see will be the guy to the right, to the left. But anyway, which I didn't care about winning the competition. Well, of course, if one day I can do better, that's fine. But that I thought with myself, you know what? I'm not going to compete anymore, because it's not really translating to real life or training scenarios. And I do a lot of training, moving and drawing and all that. But I had the opportunity to train or to learn from an amazing dude. And I'm gonna put his Instagram page, and actually I'll link to his YouTube. It's X-Ray Alpha Matt. He he was showing me some stuff that completely changed the way that I shoot, the way that I sight picture, how I get my sights, and on the target. I mean, just quick explanation, man. It just changed everything, and some things about my grip, some things about my trigger finger. And then I was talking to him, and this guy's a grandmaster UPSCA. How do you call it? UPSCA or UPCA, whatever the name is, right? So he's a grandmaster competitor. This guy's like multiple championships and etc. I'm like, and he's a retired veteran. But anyway, so the guy's an amazing shooter. He competes all the time, and he teaches the best classes out there too. One of the best classes out there. So I was brave. I'm just talking about myself. I'm like revisit my first thought, and I'm like, you know what? I was wrong about not competing. I'm gonna get back into competition. Mm-hmm. So it could be something small like that, like just learn from somebody that can educate you and teach you the reasons behind, and adapt those things and make it work for yourself. And I love what you just said about in the book that Jeff Cooper mentions about competition and training. Anyway, I think it's time for us to go, and it was a great episode. I think I went off on communism a lot, but again, I'm not afraid of saying that I don't like communism.
Yeah,
and I think communist people, Americans that flirts with the idea of communism, they need more reading. Yeah. And if they read and they know history well, and they're still for communism, it's just not a good person. you need really conversion. Sorry, dude.
Yeah.
Right. So, any final words, Shihan?
No, I mean, we covered a lot of ground, that's for sure. I mean, this is a kind of a little bit of a different approach, but I liked it. It was fun. It was kind of like really like us just going out for coffee and talking.
but that's I think that's the fun, best. Yeah. The best episodes are like that. And then and again, I really appreciate everybody. And by the way, this is very quick. December 11th, December 17th. December 17th. I'm gonna post this in our next episode. December 17th. We're going to have Shihan Walt Lysak teaching grappling for the streets. So we're going to think about a scenario one-on-one. Is that kind of scenario that we are both unarmed. We're going to talk about how we can maybe a weapon could appear in the middle of the altercation, but the situation will be we cannot get ourselves out. So it's pretty much we already passed the 2 first A's. So the seminar is going to be December 17th. We're going to start, I think, at 10 a.m., if I'm not wrong. And and it will be for you guys that already have been doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You should really take this class, this seminar. And if you never trained, we're still gonna help you. If you are interested in increasing your abilities and understanding unarmed situations, because I know many guys like they carry firearms or they're police officers and they have a bunch of tools, tasers, this and that and those. Some guys like carry fixed blades, some guys carry this and that, and they all have all the tools in the world. But the point, like you always say, a lot of times, and most of the times, for us civilians, it's not a lethal situation. We cannot go use a deadly force, but this course, this seminar can help a lot law enforcement, especially because you guys can do the check, control, maintain control, and apprehend. So come down. Even if you never trained jiu-jitsu, never trained grappling, please come down. It's going to be $50, so it's like super affordable. Shihan is like, he offered, for free. I'm like, this is his time. He's coming here. We need to, make sure that people appreciate that. It's going to be a 2-hour. I know Shihan going to talk about the principles. We're going to go standing grappling, ground grappling. And I know people are going to be like, what if this, what if that? Don't worry, because we're going to have every 6 months Shihan in Danbury, Connecticut, to run some sort of different variations, because RMA is very comprehensive. And so we're going to isolate, and we're going to do grappling for the streets, or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for the streets. It's specific. You guys are going to come dressed up the way that you dress up on a daily basis. Yeah. So there's no uniforms, no special, gis and lapels. It's just like, whatever, sweatshirt, jacket, no jacket, t-shirt. I think going to be great. December 17th, and Professor, 10 a.m., American Top Team.
Yeah, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners, I find, especially when they come with the right type of mindset, are the easiest people for the reality ground fighting program. I mean, I always said it's scary, the idea of a person that has that level of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that learns these other things, how to integrate synergistically all these other elements we bring in from the biting, body handles, nerve attacks, pain points, weaponry, striking, so on and so forth. Like you do. So it's going a little beyond what we do just in competition jiu-jitsu and MMA, considering the streets, different environments, so on and so forth. So it's just an extension. It's not like there's a lot of time I can save when I work with a good Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioner that I have to spend when someone's totally new to anything on the ground. So I find that there's some of my favorite people to train and teach. And I have there's a 3-day course we do sometimes, which I want to hold with you at some point in the future. It's a 30-hour course. Usually we do 10 hours a day for 3 days, all reality ground fighting. It's an amazing, comprehensive course. Then it factors in just about everything you could possibly think of. But this is a great entry, point approach for getting into that course in the future if they ever wanted to do it. So I think that
let's do it.
If they do this, maybe we can get one of those in the future.
Yeah. So actually, when I release this episode, I will put the information, how you can sign up. I'm going to put the link to the page, the flyers and everything. Invite everybody. You can invite your family. You can invite your kids. You can invite your wife. You guys are going to work as a team, as a family, because you guys need to be all on the same page. Nobody should be a distraction in the case of, a scenario like that. And you guys are going to have opportunity to meet Shihan in person. Links to the address, information, page, I will put in the description. The description of this video going to have so much great stuff. So anyway, thank you very much, everybody. Share, hit the like button, subscribe, but please share. Send your comments. We're going crazy with ideas here, but I'm loving it. Thanks so much, Shihan.
See you guys. Have a good night.
Have a good night.